What's up, everybody? Getting some peeps in here to start a little show. Let's see who's here. Boom, 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 boom. Gotta send the bat signal out. Brett Lewis, what's up from the UK? What's up, Brett? Let's see. Go to my control room. Who's in here? It always does this. It doesn't show up unless I refresh. Get your stuff together, YouTube. There we go. What? Raid 0. Phil, what is up, my dude? Hope you're doing well. Be nice to see you.
Do you pull up YouTube while you do this?
I have the control room up, but you should be able to see all the things on the Skype stream when people chat and whatnot. You can also, I think you can pull out the chat. You can do a pop-out chat if you don't want the stream to be running. Depends on how much bandwidth you got. Gustav, what's up, dude? Send this out to my Facebooks.
Dan Marino, what is up?
Oh my gosh, Emmett Smith is here.
Dude.
Dan Marino,
I just saw Dan posted something in the Slack about interviewing with a high-level tech company. He's really waiting to hear back to see if the offer comes through.
Nice.
So good luck, Dan.
Yeah.
That'd be freaking rad.
Now the whole world knows.
Hey, I'm keeping it discreet.
All 5 listeners. Let's see. Yeah, Phil's watching from bed. Super sick. Uh-oh, you got the Ro-Ro?
My brother finally got it.
What up, Thomas? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Man. I'm just trying to not get it again. I need to go get that new booster that has it for like all the things. And then Ebola's going around again.
Well, total swine flu.
Well, Ebola has locked down Africa, apparently. Or at least Uganda. But there's 2 cases in Chicago.
God.
So that's fun. 54% death rate. And it's the best time to talk raises with studios.
Rate raises?
Rate raises.
I would say January 1st.
Yeah, that's true, actually. You say, hey, first of the year coming up. So, inflation, something. Rates going up.
Something. Inflation, something. Inflation, double my rate.
Something, pay me. All right, I got my notes. I think we are good to go.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm missing something, but no, I think we're good. I think we are good. All right, here we go. What's up and welcome to another Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Mark.
And this week, Matt is not here. He's actually on the showroom floor with Pickle Nick at NAB East. And Mograph is a supplement to our site, Mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us info@mograph.com, let you know what you think about the show, questions, comments, concerns, queries, grievances, artist suggestions, show topic ideas. We are on mograph.com. We're on youtube.com/mograph, and you can check out all the info on the show there if you want to know more about schedule and such. But Mark Cernosia is here today. Now, Cernosia, I hear a lot of people slur through it and say Cernosa.
Oh, yeah.
Do you get a lot of that?
It's the best way to filter out anyone that might not know us,
might not be your friend.
Like spam calls or something. It's a pretty easy one to...
I hear a lot of our friends say Cernosa.
Yeah, I mean, I just let it roll. Yeah. Cernosia.
Okay. Cernosia.
Yeah. It's Yugoslav.
Oh, it's Yugoslav.
Czech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So. Check. Literally. So we're going to talk about you today, and we're going to talk about motion graphics in general, kind of like the episodes that Matt and I do when it's just the two of us.
Yeah,
We're just going to shoot the shit and talk about some of the stuff you do, because you're always on here talking about camp. But we're going to talk about what you do, and we're going to dig into some stuff about like Cinema 4D and AI and VR and all the fun stuff. Like I said, Matt is at NAB East in New York. Pickle Nick is there too. They're setting up right now. They're looking for the gear that I sent them. I know it's arrived, even though it doesn't say it's arrived, because I have Apple trackers and everything. So I know it's there. So they're wandering around the show floor aimlessly looking for some boxes, some expensive boxes. So
crates.
Yeah. So yes, Phil, we are going to talk 4090s a bit. We got that in there near the beginning, actually. So hopefully before you fall asleep there on the UK, before we put you to sleep. So make sure that you watch the NAB East live streams. They're going to start Wednesday. They're going to be Wednesday and Thursday. And, send good vibes toward Matt and Nick, because they are running a live stream for the very first time without me there. I'm sure they will be fine.
They'll be fine. If something goes wrong, you turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah, no one's sorry. Like, well, you used to say in the industry when you made a mistake, it's all right, no one's watching.
Yeah, no one's watching. No one saw it.
No one saw it. You're at an arena with 30,000 people watching, and you hit the wrong button and screw up a cut. It's all right, no one's watching.
No one's watching.
No one's watching.
Artistic vision, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I meant to do that. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a little different than usual, but we're going to do the things we usually do, which is talk about digital art. And I do have to say that digital art cannot get soup cans thrown at it. Did you know that? Yeah. So it's got that going for it. Did you hear about the whole story with the soup cans?
Just briefly. Honestly, I haven't researched it, and it's been on the top of my head trying, when I had time to go dig into it. But maybe fill me in a little bit more. But
long story short, there's two activists that want to stop big oil, and so they threw soup at a Van Gogh painting, because that stops big oil. And
yes.
They threw it at his Sunflowers painting, and it's an $80 million painting. So it's just ironic, because then they glued themselves to the wall next to it. And I'm thinking, that glue, it was most likely made possible by petroleum products, first of all. Second of all, the company that they're working for, this activist organization, when it comes down to it, is funded by an oil heiress. So I don't quite understand that. It's kind of pointless. Yeah. So they pled not guilty, which is also funny, because they literally did it, and everybody has videos and pictures of them. And, it doesn't solve any problems, which is exactly why Beeple's piece yesterday or the day before was called Problem Solved. And it's got like two clowns, like the clown face emoji, two people, doing that thing with their hands on the wall. And it's funny because like Phil said, there's glass over it. So it did nothing. It did nothing except make you look like clowns. And I guess that was his statement. Yeah. So that's pretty funny.
Well, I'm glad there's glass over it. I mean, as any $80 million painting probably should have.
Yeah, you figured they would, you know.
Yes.
So on the agenda here for this week, classes, make sure you take advantage of the Creating the Unreal class, which there's going to be 50%, there is 50% off on that right now if you use the promo code, which is in our Twitter feed. You can find it if you scroll back a little bit. And speaking of which, Brandon's course, RTX On, we're going to have a special on November 3rd with Brandon and Winbush. It's going to be one of those nighttime specials, which we haven't done in a while. And we're going to be talking about Unreal. We were hoping Jags could make it, but he, I think, has another speaking event. So
is this like Mograph at night?
Yeah,
Mograph.
evening Mograph. See, Matt's already sending me stuff right now, like looking for things. They're missing some packages apparently. I don't know. That's not good. There are 9. There are 9 packages, and what's probably funny is it's probably the one that I don't have a tracker in that's missing. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see 7 in this photo, and yeah, there should be more.
That's not good.
Yeah. Anyway, I will figure that out after the show. So, let's see what else. The spooky special is going to be on Halloween, so make sure you're ready to call in on Skype on that. It's going to be the name Mograph Calls on Skype. You can Skype in and say hi and get a piece of candy. And then Half Res. The videos for Half Res are. I'm trying to edit those. I had a really weird problem with them. It's a sync audio issue because the guy who was running the board recorded it digitally onto a thumb drive, and we recorded on a Blackmagic camera, and it was not variable frame rate. I don't understand the issue. The files did not sync up, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, we'll just use pluralize." I'm like, I assure you that's not the problem. It's not just lining them up. And so the next thing you do when stuff doesn't line up and it's actually just a little bit off is you stretch it, right? You stretch the audio or the video just the right way to make it work. If you line up the beginning and you line up the end, the middle just doesn't align at all. Like, it's so weird. It's like if you were trying to match up a perfect digital audio recording with a cassette tape.
Well, it's almost like you guys, like the video was shot at 24 and the audio was like recorded at 23.978.
Yeah,
or 6 or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and you should be able to convert it, and it should work. It should line up if you convert it, but it just doesn't.
Weird.
It's just like it was changing
just over time.
Yeah, it drifts throughout back and forth just a little bit. So the solution is going to be I'm going to have to go edit the thing in almost real time, cut like every minute, and realign it every minute, and it's just going to be grueling. So it will get out there eventually.
You need an intern.
Yeah,
that's a perfect job for
yeah.
Watch these hours of presentations and chop it up.
Yeah, maybe Joey has one, but
what did you record on? Or just recorded up to a thumb drive from the audio board?
Yeah, we gave him a thumb drive and he just plugged it in, and it just, it sounds pristine. It's amazing.
There's got to be some sort of frame rate issue, but
yeah,
I'm not an audio guy.
So, what else is on my list? I think that's it. I already talked about NAB. So let's go to Ravcock. What's your flavor?
What's your flavor?
What's your flavor? I only had one thing on there, and that's the 4090s because there was some sort of official benching that came out, and it's twice as fast octane bench wise as a 3090, and it's like, that's tempting.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are just like, oh, are you going to get one? Are you going to get one? I'm going to get one. It's like, yes, but like, I don't know. And for me, it's because I already have, quite a handful of cards. I'm like, I don't really see the urgency in going through all that rigmarole.
Right. And what's the power draw on it? It's pretty gnarly, right? It's pretty high. Because I've got two 3090s. And I've been happy with them. And I guess that's what's always tough with like the benchmarks and all that stuff is that, for me at least, it's like, oh, amazing, it saved this much time on these benchmarks. But like in my everyday work that I do, like, am I really doubling my speed on everything? Or is it just bumping it up a little bit here and there? But like in those benchmark scenes, it's, been really optimized with the GI and whatever it may be, but like, I don't know. It just seems like I'm perfectly happy and fine with this. It would be great to go to one card, I guess, but like, not necessary, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if I was coming from a 2080 or something, it'd be different. But
you wouldn't go to one card though. You got to get two.
Can they even fit two?
I don't know. Probably not. Right?
Yeah,
they're huge. They are gigantic.
Well, someone in the Slack posted something. It was like a octane bench of like 5,000 something or other.
For what?
It was octane bench. Michael Docking. It says benchmark finished. It had 4 4090s.
Ooh.
And the octane bench was 5296. It's almost 5,300. Yeah, 5,300.
Now, I understand it probably has a lot better VRAM temperature control after that debacle.
Right.
And like it would be a good option, but it's like for me, I already have cards. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten a lot of 3090s, and I'm just kind of like, do I really need it right now? Like I can render pretty fast. I can render pretty dang fast, and everything I render is short, so, Yeah.
I mean, just having I don't know. Right now, I'm going to just pause, and I mean, the crazy markup happening, I mean, everyone was trying to get them when they went on sale, and, like, apparently the Best Buy button never even, like, turned before it said sold out.
Yeah, that's what Billy said.
And, I dealt with this with the 3090s forever, and it was such a pain in the butt. It's like, all right, I'm fine for now, it's not really changing much on my end, but, I definitely see the benefits and higher VRAM and there's just more power. But, I mean, we're getting to a point where, dude, you're going to have its own desk for the GPU or its own power supply. Like, they need to start making them, like, just not bigger and more powerful, but just more efficient, too.
Right. And I guess maybe technically they are. They're just faster, so that kind of evens it out, right?
Right.
Yeah. And let's say you get a 4090 in your system, right? And I don't know what the wattage draw is for it yet, and I still don't. I know sometimes like it'll say one thing, but it's actually more.
Right.
It's like, what are you gonna do? I don't know.
What is it? 4090 total power draw.
Yeah. You got to watch that, and I kind of feel like for me, like I would rather go to something else. Maybe like, I don't know, an A series or something. So
it says total power draw 450 watts.
Okay.
Watts.
All right. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I mean you're right. Like when you're kicking off like a simulation or a render or like that thing's just jamming, it's gonna spike above that, right? Like I feel like I saw in the Slack someone talking about, it might have been Billy, how it had something to do with the power, and like it was going insanely high for like the first 3 seconds and then would drop back down.
Right. And if you have two of them, imagine that. You're going to have you're going to need headroom for the rest of your computer and whatnot.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, really, do you want to really get that beefy? I mean, the A series cards have a better power draw. They're a little more profesh. So I feel like on my next system, I want to have some like sleek A series card and like water cool. I want to do all of that. I've never done that. I know a lot of people don't because it's a big hassle, which is why I've never done it. But I kind of feel like I'm at the point now. It's kind of like with the iPhone, right? Like you get an iPhone and, oh, hey, you're on the upgrade plan. You get to upgrade and you get a little bit more. But like, I don't know.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Is it worth like
the trouble
battling to try to find the card, getting it installed, trying to figure out what drivers are working with what version of Redshift and or Octane or whatever? There's just always so many pieces to the puzzle. It's like if my machine's working fine, like I'm not touching it.
because there's going to be other stuff that comes up, you know. Oh, and yeah, and Vernon says A6000, more CUDA cores and 300-watt power draw. And it's like, if you were to get
What's
the
price
card,
on that one,
and
though?
it's spendy.
Yeah,
but,
right.
If you put it in your computer, 4090, you might find out that it's too long. Like, maybe there's maybe it's hitting a fan, or
right. Maybe you need a new motherboard because you can't fit it, or, you know, like, depending on what machine you have. But
yeah, like mine barely fits because there's like a fan kind of in the way, and so there's just like a fraction of a millimeter that sticks out a little bit more on the pins on the PCI slot, and like it's like I don't know if I can handle anymore, or is it going to be too heavy? Am I going to need to turn this box sideways? Like, I feel like it's going to start sagging, you know.
Oh, seriously.
So I don't know. I feel like a lot of motion designers use these series cards because they are the most quote unquote affordable, right? But then you go to yeah, exactly, the CUDA cores for your buck, I guess. You know?
Now, has the whole Ethereum moving to proof of stake, has that changed any of the demand going on with the GPUs? I really haven't been keeping up with it, but I know the miners were like all over the 3090s and, you know, yada yada, but like I'm not sure if that's chilled out at all.
I think it's the crash in
the
crypto in general. Yeah, that was the semiconductor was part of the problem too, the shortages, but now it's also like it's not as worth it to do these farms and whatnot. So
yes, correct.
Yeah.
So hopefully some other stuff comes, you know, back online in terms of like other GPUs and whatnot, 3090s or even 2080s if you can get a bunch of cheap ones.
Yeah, like Jeff said, the A6000 is like $5K, and I'm sure it'll probably be around the same price when they come out with, you know, the Quadro 4090 version.
And then like, comparing that to the 4090, which is what, $1,500, $1,600?
I think so. I don't know exactly. I haven't even been interested in it. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, 4090.
Totally.
You know, like this whole race to get graphics cards, I feel like if you get a bunch of cards and you're cool, it's like you get established, and it's like, do you really want to spend it? It's just like the thing with getting a Mac, right? Or like I said, the iPhone. It's like I used to get the new MacBook Pro when it came out, and I would you know, sell the old one, and then, you know, the phone always I got to get it the day it comes out, and like so much of that I've just given up on, like the older I get, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and the yeah, just the whole like lead up to it and the anxiety of trying to get it, like I don't know, it's not worth it for me at this point. But I'm looking to see if
there are some things that I'm still excited about that I'd buy. For example, the Quest Pro. I definitely am getting a Quest Pro. Like, that's something for me. I've always, the Oculus, I have bought every single one since the beginning, you know, and I'm really interested in it. I love it. I'm excited about where AR is going, but like when it comes to things like cards now, I'm just like, everything's working. I can come and sit down at my desk and I can render something out fairly quick or overnight.
Totally.
You know.
Well, and if you had to, you throw it to a farm if you need more power and more render juice, you know. But like, yeah, I mean the 4090s, it's gonna be hard to get, right? And then in 3 months they're gonna put out the 4090 Ti.
Yeah, right.
There's gonna be rumors about the 5090, and it's just like like consumerism, right? Like,
by the time anyone can get their hands on a 4090, they'll already announce the 5090, right? Like, totally. It just takes so long for it to battle out and for the dust to settle and people to actually get their hands on it. Like, I'm just tired of like checking Best Buy's website and doing all that. And you know, the other thing.
Oh, I was just gonna say what it's turned into, and it's, you know, I think it's always been a bit like this, but like the whole sneaker flipping thing. Do you know sneakerheads that buy a bunch of like hard to get sneakers,
right,
mark them up, flip them, you know, and like build a business off that. So obviously people are doing that with these tech products as well. But like what is starting to happen is the manufacturers and the brands like a Nike are starting to crack down on how you get the shoes. So it's almost like NVIDIA really needs to step up and figure out, bots can be written for anything nowadays, and they're going to say they're doing something to prevent it, but then that gets, worked around real quick. And anyway, I think it's going to fall more on the manufacturers of these cards to really like step up and create a better way of getting them, especially if it's direct through them. Through Best Buy and other places, it's obviously harder, but
Brett says the 4090 is selling for 2,300 pounds in the UK. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 1-to-1 right now, right? It's about $2,300, I think. Right? Yeah. Aren't the pound and the dollar pretty even?
A little bit better than us, but like, it's wild. And Nike recently let a VP of product or some VP go because it was found out that her son was running like a sneaker flipping business out of their basement, making $200K a month.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
So they're like, okay, yep, you're out of here. But anyway, it's insane.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Vernon's talking about, like, with these, with like an A6000 card, you could really get a stripped down version of that for putting, like, maybe putting 4 in a machine with water cool, like the real slim. Like I would rather try and go that route and make some crazy beefy machine, and then take the 3090s and put them. They're the older computers then, right? They're the hand-me-downs. They become a render node or whatever it is, because they're still good. That's the thing. A 3090, everybody's like, oh, this piece of, like, no, it's still freaking amazing. Like, go buy one of those. They're on sale.
My neighbor's like a high school kid, and he's got like a 2060. And he's like, oh, my setup. I love my setup. He's like, you got 2 3090s? Wow!
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we had the birthday party for Charlotte here last week, and there's some kids and stuff come over, and some of them are a little bit older, and one of them had already seen my office before, and he's got his brother with him. He's like, hey, can we go have a tour upstairs? Like, he really wants to see your stuff. So we go up here, and they're like teenagers, so it's like they're just blown away at all the computer gear. They don't even know what it does, but totally. It's just amazing to them, and they're talking about, oh my gosh, you could game on this thing. This stuff is not junk. 3090s are not junk. Like, no. People would still kill for this. So it's like the consumerism on the 4090.
Well, what are 1080 Ti's going for nowadays? I still got a few of those things stacked over here,
I know. I don't know what happened to mine. Like, I think at one point Pickle Nick had them, and I'm just like, meh. I've got some 2080s, I think, sitting somewhere in a closet.
They're like holding up your desk or something.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, I know somebody would probably just kill for this. I should just donate it to somebody at this point. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally.
So, like find somebody who really needs it at a school or something,
Yeah. That'd be dope.
So, yeah, but, so camp, I mean, we'll briefly talk about camp. We've talked a lot about it in the past, and I think the only thing I wanted to bring up is that, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work. A lot of people are like, oh, where's it going to be next year and all of that. And it is quite a process to figure that out.
Yes, it is. Well, and especially now, because it's like, year after year, we just kind of clean the slate and start over again. And given we know kind of a loose structure of how it works year to year, just trying to find camps that can accommodate our needs, are close to certain airports, or just travel stuff. Takes so much into consideration, all the feedback that we get. So there's just a lot to kind of digest from the previous camp and then try to implement into the next camp while trying to find a host for that camp.
Yeah, and it's like there's variables like, of course, how far it is from the airport, you know, which it was pretty far last year, but, you know, we were willing to make that sacrifice. You know, then there's other things like, what are their alcohol policies?
Yeah.
You know, can we bring our own alcohol? Do you allow alcohol? You know, can we serve it ourselves? Do we have to have certain licenses? And then the food, like there's all of these things, and like including the bunks. Oh, well, this place comfortably houses, you know, 200 people. Oh, okay, well that's fine because we don't have 200 people. Oh, but that's only if someone's in every bunk. So we've got to, you know, then we got to rent the whole thing. And so we kind of have this list of all the criteria now. And it's like every time we find one, we're like, oh, this is perfect. And then one of those things doesn't meet the, you know.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's always so tough to find the right ones. And we've been very fortunate. And every year we've found some really good spots. And yeah, it's always the biggest challenge, but it's also an exciting time because it helps us, you know, find the location, and then we might base any sort of, you know, branding or theme off of the location or whatnot, you know. So from a creative standpoint, it's definitely exciting. But yeah, I mean, we had about a week after camp, and then we started planning next year. So it's it's kind of like you're right into the next one, which is great and would be a lot easier if we did it in the same location each year. But we don't, and you know, eventually we'll make it back to some of these locations. But but yeah, for now it's just, you know, trying to find the right spots that fit what camp's all about, our vibe and everything, you know. So we've got a few lined up that we need to investigate a little bit more, but I think we're gonna find a good one this year, or for this next year. So pretty excited
it's like,
about it.
You know, if you have to find it so you can figure out that theme. Like, oh, is it going to be in Texas? If so, we're going to do a country western theme. If it's going to be, you know what I mean? Like, if it's going to be in Colorado, it's going to be something different. You know, it's like that would be really, that's something that's really important too. And so we got to find it quick because we got to start working on like the creative for it. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that just goes into it, and that's one way we can kind of keep it fresh for us and for the campers and everything, is doing different creative things. Like this past year, we did the whole festival guide. We did, you know, a lot more of a theme type branding this year than we had in the past. And just adding more to the event itself. So like there's just a lot to do and digest, and then also try to make better for next year. So in terms of like, you know, the different activities and all that. So,
and we got the surveys out too. Check your emails.
Yeah, if you haven't filled one out yet, but we've gotten quite a few, which is more than we ever had, and so that's so great. And thank you to everyone who filled those out, because it really does help us improve the event. So
so many good ideas come from that too. You know, people will mention one little thing and we're like, wow, why didn't we ever think about that before? You know, so
totally,
you know, we read all of it. So
yeah.
But let's talk about you a little bit, because you're on all the time, and we talk about camp, but we don't talk about your backgrounds. Where did you go to school?
Oh yeah, go way back. So I'm from Vermont here, and born and raised here, and then I went to college here as well. The college I went to was liberal arts, so there's no computer animation or anything like that. I mean, this was back, I graduated college in 2003, so, you know, I mean, just digital video was new. But yeah, so through college, I learned a lot of different programs, from Premiere to Flash, you know, like when that whole, everything really kind of moved online. Dreamweaver Remember that?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, through that, you know, I just learned a lot of the tech programs, and I was always into art and video. You know, my roots are in action sports, really, like skateboarding, snowboarding. Not as much surfing for me because I'm up here in the mountains, but yeah, just being into outdoor activities like that. And I was always filming my friends and making little edits, you know, VCR to VCR or camera to camera with the pause and dubbing, you know, music over it. I mean, it was that DIY, grungy, just kind of make it work way of doing it. And honestly, I love that way of doing it. It just feels way more, I mean, I don't want to say organic, but
linear.
Like, yeah, and you're just allowing a lot more, or leaving a lot more up to fate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You did, you worked at a ski resort, right? Like.
Yeah. I worked in the terrain park there doing stuff. And you know, making videos and stuff for the mountain as well. So my background is very much from the video standpoint, in terms of the animation stuff. But also, you know, I was a fine art major, so you know, sculpting, painting, all that stuff. But that was more or less, it just gave me time to create. And I mean, I loved my my whole college experience, but the most I got out of it for sure was like my network and the people I met through it, and you know, even outside of the people I met, just the network the school has, and being an alumni of something. And you even start seeing that now with the online platforms like the Mograph courses or School of Motion. Like, you have alumni still engaged with people and, you know, posting jobs and whatnot. So that was the biggest benefit of school for me, for sure. But yeah, and also I just had some great professors. And I think that's one thing that's often left out of the whole education discussion, is just the actual professors you have, and the ones that are there to you know, they might not be the smartest person in that room, right? If we're talking creatively or like with digital video or whatever it may be at the time. But they're there to be a champion for you, to keep pushing it further and keep exploring, and really allow you to, or give you that space to create and to fail, to make mistakes, and then help you through that, you know?
That's something that, like, my teachers growing up, like, some of them weren't necessarily, like, super well-versed in, I mean, this is all video stuff, of course, but, like, not necessarily well-versed in the software or any of that stuff. It's just giving you the access to the stuff and allowing you to have the freedom to experiment, you know, is very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of the assignments and stuff we would have, multiple times I would go into the computer lab because that's where they had the editing decks and stuff, but like for logging and transferring the footage. But there was always people in there just like making stuff,
right?
You know, and I think that is really kind of the coolest thing. And that's one thing that like Freddie Wong talked about at camp, was when they were all living together, the Corridor Digital kind of crew there, they were all just living together, sleeping on the floor, just making stuff. And it was, he said, so much fun. They learned so much stuff from it. And, you know, that's what kind of happened to me as well after college. Is I moved out from Vermont. I moved out to California and lived up in the Lake Tahoe area for a bunch of years, and we made snowboard videos. And so we would be, you know, capturing snowboarding all winter, and then all summer we would edit, and just late nights we're sleeping on the floor, we got the computer, you know, humming in the corner there, you know, and just the creative energy and just the overall, you know, positive vibe of the whole thing. It was just, we kept feeding off each other, and year after year, and I don't know, those are definitely special times in my life too, you know. And like, I look back and laugh about how I'd get so stressed out about, we got to get the teaser done to launch it on the thing, and it's like, man, that was like the smallest little worry. Now, like in my life now, it's I got kids and a family. It's such a small thing, but like back then, it was like the biggest thing, and that's all I had to really care about and worry about. And just having that room to do it was just very like invigorating and got the creative juices really flowing. And I don't know, I think that's what also gets me stoked to like be part of the camp thing and on these Discords and Slacks and chatting with people. And we've, used to do Monday meetings, and just having a community and having a group of people that you can just chat with and be creative and shoot around ideas. Like, I mean, that's to me like such a important side of creativity that like, it's hard doing that at home, but the more technology's advanced and all that, it's now allowing us to do it together with the Discords and the Zooms and all that stuff,
Which I guess with Monday meetings, some people have asked, what happened with that, and where did it go? Are you doing it again? And I think you've told me in the past that it kind of has to do with the fact that now, I mean, back then people weren't hanging out in Discords the way they are now,
Totally. And I mean, so Liam and I still like the URL and like the hosting and all that just like came up for renewal, and we're like, do we need to renew it? What do you think? So we renewed it for another year. And we just have so much good content up there. And for those who aren't familiar, Monday meetings were essentially a weekly call where we would host a Zoom meeting, Liam and I, and it would just be an open discussion where we would talk about anything from rates to projects to, check out this piece by this person, I wonder how they did it, to different presentations and guests and all that. It wasn't really a podcast. It was more of like a weekly show. And we had some great content generated from that. But we stopped doing them about a year ago or so, maybe a little bit more now. Just because at the time, Liam had just taken a full-time position. We just ran out of like kind of time to do it.
Yeah,
because
it's hard.
Like as much as we try to keep it like really super simple, there's still the posting and writing the stuff and tagging the things and doing all that. It's just like, do we need to keep doing this? Anyway,
it's a lot. It's a lot every week. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it is with like this show and all that, but like, and what you were alluding to, Dave, was that we were doing Monday meeting like pre-pandemic. We were doing it for years, and a lot of the same topics would come back up just because, it's an open discussion.
New people who
didn't tune in last week may come in this week and ask the same question, and which is fine. And there's always different artists and people coming through, so it was kept that fresh and fun. But now with so many different Discords and Slacks and different ways to like be together as like artists, Monday meeting kind of served its purpose for what it was when it was. And I'm not going to say it's dead because we just renewed it and like we can fire it up whenever we want. But it served its purpose for the time it was. And, if that's what it is, then great, Yeah,
you should hold on to that URL for sure, I think. Like
totally.
When you do something big like that, you don't want to let go of the URL. I'm a URL hoarder. If I don't use them, I might let them go if I don't use them. But man, like shows that I did back in the day, like my first podcast, all that stuff that I did, like I still pay to renew that domain. I'm not letting that go.
Yeah.
You never know.
But yeah, so who knows what might come of Monday meeting. We had a great run. I mean, we did it for like 4 years or something like that. So like we might be able to fire it back up, but there's so many other great resources happening now and discussions online happening now that, we'll just foster those and let those continue,
Yeah. Yeah, or you never know. You might want to do something different with the same name, that
totally
is similar or something.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, you want to keep that,
Well, and a lot of the Monday meeting thing was just like helping build community and all that, and just being part of the motion graphics community. And then a lot of that effort also shifted towards like camp. So I, having to fit in client work and family, and there's just, I think we all know how busy we can get, and adding more stuff to the plate is never easy.
Yeah, and if you've got too many things, then you're just going to do the bare minimum on all those things.
Right.
And that's the thing. You want to be able to devote attention. I was devoting so much attention to Mograph that I had no bandwidth left, and I pulled back on a bunch of stuff. You'll see, like, the social media posts and all the little... It's like, you know what? I'm just going to do a show. I'm going to post it. That's pretty much all I can afford to do right now. I'm trying to do all these other things behind the scenes and other stuff besides the podcast,
Yes, right.
Even if it has to do with Mograph, there's other Mograph stuff that we're working on. And even like look at Mograph TV, 24/7 network, and then all of a sudden you got to maintain that.
Dude, you've got like 8 full-time jobs going on,
Yeah, sometimes you got to step back and really think about, okay, what really has to get done.
Well, so here's the thing too that I've always wrestled with, because like I think you especially as like, and I know we're kind of all over the place here topic wise, but like as like a business owner or like a creative person, and there's all these not rules but ways of doing things, right? Like you're supposed to post your work and get found, and you do this, and you post your daily, and you go to here and you do that. And it's like, you know what? If you're happy and you're busy and you're working, and my camera's out of focus, you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it because everybody else does it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, if it's stressing you out and it's like making you burn out and burn the candle on both ends because you're trying to just kind of keep up with the Joneses and everybody else does it, so I need to do it. I've gotten that way, especially around social stuff. I'm like,
oh, for sure.
Man, I haven't posted anything on Instagram. And then I'll make all this effort, post, and like the post gets like an engagement of like 30. I'm like, oh, cool.
Right.
I'm so glad I did all this. And it's like, I'm busy enough. I don't need to like
create stuff so that 30 people
know?
can scroll past it on Instagram. Like it's just, yeah. And that stuff is great. It makes you look good as a business, I think. But sometimes maybe you got to think about, like, is that worth it or not? I mean, one of the things with Mograph is like, God, when was this? This is before we moved into this house. We were in an apartment, had all of my gear crammed into a little room, and like, it's essentially anything going on with the show or anything, or the newsletter or whatever. It was just me trying to cobble it together the best I could, and it did give a good impression that, oh, hey, we're a business. Yeah, we were making money on classes. We had just started with the Houdini course at the time and other stuff. It was starting to make a little bit of money on that, but like, and it's great. Like it's a great testament to how having that social presence can actually help your brand and whatnot. But like, I don't even remember what was going on in the world. This is, I believe, before COVID that this happened. Now I feel like these events, more events that are even more important have gone on since. But there was some social, I don't know. I don't remember what it was now. Something was going on in the world, right? And people were upset at us that we had not put our opinion of how we feel about it on the internet. How come your brand hasn't come out, for or against this thing? And it's like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about me sitting at this computer in this apartment? Like you really, and it's like I'm like I'm flattered that you think we're a giant conglomerate, but it's really just me sitting here at my desk in this apartment in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. Like you really want my opinion on that? You really want our brand to have this opinion on this social thing because it's just me sitting here.
Right.
Like it's just me sitting here trying to get a podcast out for free. Like, I don't think that what I'm doing is really going to help that. If you want my opinion, I can tell you my opinion on this social concern, but like, you know, it's weird. But okay, hey, tell me, so you were doing all of that stuff, but we haven't really linked together how all of a sudden now you are working for yourself, doing things in Cinema 4D, Houdini, all the other stuff. How did you get there? Did you go work somewhere? Did you just decide to do contracts?
Yeah, so after spending some time in the Lake Tahoe area, we moved back to Vermont, and during that time I was freelancing and doing contract work, kind of under the video kind of design type umbrella, animation, you know, just like you do when you first kind of jump in, taking anything. But then I started working at Burton Snowboards, and there I was the internal video editor and animator. And we had a bunch of contractors and stuff, but I was kind of the head internal person there for it. And as the years went by, I was focusing more on animation and doing more 3D stuff, and created a few campaigns using some 3D assets, and saw some light bulbs go off in the different marketing people, and like the VPs, people are really like interested in this 3D rendering of product, you know, because it allows us to iterate colorways and change, and you know, adjust to changes and all this stuff relatively quick, compared to having to have a sample made in like a one-off factory somewhere, having that shipped over to the US, you know, setting up a photo studio, taking pictures of the product, and then God forbid something changes, you've got to redo that whole process, and that process is weeks long, and who knows now, it's probably even more. So I saw a lot of light bulbs go off. I had put some feelers out around the industry, and different people I knew that worked at different industries, different companies in the outdoor industry, and come to find out a lot of these major players were already using like photogrammetry and stuff like that for products on their website. A real famous one that has done a lot of that is IKEA, right? IKEA does a lot of their render, or a lot of their imagery is render. And so like just seeing stuff like that, I'm like, okay, there's got to be, you know, work out here, because given I was already working in my dream job, I had wanted to work at Burton Snowboards for so long. I wanted to edit snowboard videos and make cool snowboard stuff. And I was able to get there, and after about 7 years there, I just kind of felt like I had hit the ceiling. I wanted to do more, and within that role, I could only do so much. So at that time, I had actually got recruited away from Burton to go work at a studio based out of a town north of Boston. And so I started working for them, and it was going to mean that I would have to move from Vermont down to Massachusetts, you know, sell the house we were currently in, uproot the whole family, and like, unless I was, you know, 1000% gung-ho on this job, I didn't want to move, you know, and it got to that point where I wasn't super gung-ho, and I decided just to do my own thing. I had saved up money because we were going to move, so I was saving for that move. And so it gave me runway to jump out on my own thing. I knew if I wasn't going to land any projects right off the bat, I'd be able to, you know, float our way through financially and take care of the family. But turns out I kind of announced that I was doing freelance stuff or working for myself, and the jobs just started coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So again, kind of proving the theory that like the whole product viz thing was really starting to take off. And especially in the kind of outdoor / lifestyle industries,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would say like tech industries and certain, certain industries like that had already been very privy to any sort of 3D renderings. I mean, think about like Intel commercials or car
Mm-hmm.
commercial. They've had a lot of CGI already, but
Yeah.
moving into that outdoor industry, it was pretty fresh for people, and it still is. So anyway, that started picking up steam, and since that was picking up so much steam, the project became bigger than myself. So I started my own little studio called Profanity Creative, and it's essentially myself with a team in a roster of trusted freelancers that I use all the time, and we can scale up and down however we need
Mm-hmm.
to for the job. But it was one of those things that I wanted to become a name that wasn't like my personal name, because I wasn't doing all the work myself, so I felt kind of guilty about putting it on my website if uh, but also if I really wanted to start growing this thing, I felt that I would get a seat at the table to some bigger projects as Profanity Creative rather than Mark
Absolutely.
Cernosia.
Right.
Because if you're thinking about how a studio or a brand may run, marketing might say, all right, cool, we're going to use Mark, it's going to be great. Then finance sees, oh, this budget going to Mark Cernosia, like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy? Yeah.
But if I'm a LLC, like studio name,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, okay, cool, check. So it's just like little things like that, that just over time has allowed me to kind of grow Profanity into what it is now. And I still run it the same way as I started it, and scale up when we need to. I've definitely thought about having some full-time employees, but as of now, it's something I still consider, but we'll have to just kind of see what time brings.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of that. I think I mentioned a couple times lately that, like, I love the thought of, okay, this is your personal renders page, this is your personal Instagram page, but also here is your company Instagram page, and that one might not have like your dailies in it. It might not have. It might have more. It might have some of the closer to for the meal things that you've done. Like,
Yeah.
I do product renderings and things too. Especially the colorways, all that kind of stuff. Like it can be lucrative. Like when someone comes to you and say, "Hey, I've got this model. I need 50 different still renders of this in 50 different colors." You can charge a decent amount of money for something like that, and
Yeah.
and you're not going to put that like on your cool Instagram page with your reels and your cool dailies and stuff.
Totally.
You put that on the other page, and if that has a company name, your website has that stuff on it, of course, because you want to sell that.
Yeah.
Then you can play it both ways. You could be a contractor if someone likes that, if they think your render is fire and they want to like hire you, or a studio or a more like an ad agency will come to you and be like, "Oh, we need this studio to work on this thing."
Right.
Advertise
Right.
yourself both ways. Why not?
Yeah. 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 And it's definitely been a learning curve because again, I come from more of the creative side rather than like a business side, but I have taken a couple creative business classes that
Mm-hmm.
have really allowed me to understand the business a bit more, understand how clients think a bit better, um, and even just narrowing down positioning and stuff like that has really been beneficial to me just over the years. And one thing that I never really realized was the whole positioning thing. And You know, when I first started out doing my own contract work, I was like, I'm an animator. I can do it all. Like, hit me up if you need work, you know? And then through some of these classes I've taken and through different discussions and all that, it's come to my realization that positioning and niching yourself down, it seems terrifying, but it also just creates that room for you to be the expert in that thing.
Absolutely.
So like, if there's a new client that comes to me, they're coming to me either, well, most of the time it's through referral and whatnot, but they're coming to me and to us because we do product visualization for the outdoor and lifestyle industries. And we can speak that talk, or we can talk that talk, we can walk that walk. That's what we do. That's our roots and all that. So it's, the more I've niched down, the more work I've actually gotten. And I thought it was going to be like opposite of that. Like, I'm like, well, if I'm taking all these potential clients and just grabbing just this little sliver and only addressing those, like, isn't that totally counterintuitive to like how you should be running a business and what? But, you know, if you think about it, if you need to wire your house, right, or you got a plumber for a pool, you hire the pool guy to come plumb your pool or whatever it needs, right? You're not just getting Joe the plumber from down the street. You're getting the specialist because they know how to do it, you know?
Right, the pool plumbing
that's a terrible
specialist.
Analogy.
The one that is, you know, that works with the pool guy all the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, like, you're already creating yourself or putting yourself in that position in of being an expert in what you do.
Right. An example would be LED wall content. I have done many concert tours over the years, so I have that background and I know how to talk to people about LED walls and live production stuff, and I know how things interface, and just I can wrap my head around something that's being described to me because I have that experience. And so people, and I don't do like virtual production, you know, like the volumes and stuff, but this is more like, you know, digital sets and things in weird formats, and like that's something I do a lot of now because people go to work with me and then they're like, oh, you understand what I'm talking about when I say these terms. You know, we're using this machine. Oh, okay, cool. So that has this kind of server, you know, and they're like, how do you know that? It's, well, I've just been doing it, you know. It's
well, and if you think about it too, it you know, just the positioning alone, like, is already, like, if you have that kickoff call with a client or a discovery call or whatnot with them, they're already positioning you as that expert. But then it just makes it easier for you to hopefully, if you land that gig, get repeat business or referrals, because if they can pass you that project and have confidence that you're going to just do it and knock it out of the park, you know, depending on what your budgets may be, like, that person's just going to pay it because you're going to make their life a hell of a lot easier. You know? And
there's a lot of subtle things that'll come up in that too that'll just make them feel comfortable if you're in that niche, you know. Like, again, coming back to the LED wall stuff, right? If somebody wants to hire somebody to make content from an LED wall and they just find somebody because their renders are fire on the internet, well, once they get in a meeting and they say, hey, is this going to be a problem because the pixel pitch is such and such, and then the person is like, the what? You know? Like, how many motion designers know about pixel pitch in an LED wall? Some of them, you know, but not all of them. So if they're talking about pixel pitch and you're like, oh yeah, cool, and you just flow through that conversation, they're like, oh, they get this, you know. That subconsciously makes them feel comfortable because they feel like everything they're talking about is well understood. It's super valuable. Totally. So don't be scared. Don't be scared to, like, you know, pursue that niche. Even and again, pursue it and put your other stuff out there if you want to, but, like, figure out how you're going to get to those people, because only the stuff that you're putting out there is the stuff that you're going to get. I don't know how many times this has to be said, but
right.
if you are just jonesing to work on a title sequence for a film and you've never put that on the internet and you've only put your architectural visualizations out there, nobody's ever going to come to you for that.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I got a question for you though along these lines.
Oh, let's go.
It's something from my notes actually, and I'm gonna talk about a client. Hopefully they're not listening. It's all good. It's they have since apologized to me, and I'm gonna just quickly go through this story. I was unavailable to work on a project at one point, and everybody who usually from a contract basis works for me was busy or with me. Right. And there's nobody to work on it. And this client knew I wasn't going to be around. We had to finish a project ahead of time. I was like, I'm telling you, you have to know I'm not going to take this project unless you understand that between this date and this date, I'm not available. Nobody else is available. I'm going to be not available via phone. You understand that. And they're like, yes. Okay. Of course, what happens? Their client wants to change, and I'm not available, and the people I'm with are not available, and the people I contract to are not available. So there's one person available, and I say, look, I'm like on my phone attaching him. I'm like, okay, this person can help you through this. We figured it out. I told him the situation going on. And in the end, they were like, oh, we got it taken care of. I don't know how they got it taken care of because they didn't have my files. So I have no idea how it got taken care of. But then another gig came up when I got back into town. They contacted me for a quote, and they also contacted that person for a quote. And right off the bat, it's like, I gave you this contractor that I always work with, in this situation. I gave that contact info to you because I just added the person on my phone real quick. That person usually has an email address through my company, right?
Uh-huh.
So it looks like profesh, right? But that's hard to do. You can't you can't expect every contractor you work with to have an email address for your company and log into that separately and all of that. Like you kind of, with clients, end up having a kind of a hidden, quiet understanding that if you are subcontracting through your company to do this stuff, and sometimes they talk to somebody who you're subcontracting with, that they're not going to try and go around you if they're a decent client, right? They're not trying to go behind your back. And then of course, if you have contractors that you share work, it goes both ways. A lot of these people, they come to me and I work for them. I'm not going to go after their clients. I know that would be like burning bridges. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go after your clients if you ask me to help you on a project. But what if that client came to me? I would tell you, and of course this person told me that, hey, they asked for a quote from me too. And I just emailed the client. I said, hey, that's not cool that you did that. That's really not cool. Like I gave you this in confidence. Usually they have an address, but this is my guy. You're trying to go around me, and they kind of apologized. They kind of realized what they did, I think. But so my question comes down to when you deal with that, how do you deal with that? If you have contractor friends and contractor, associates, you can't give them all an email address.
No.
You know, how do you deal with that? If you're trying to be this quote unquote studio, and you do have kind of a chain of reliable people that you go through to scale up and scale down. How do you handle that? I can see if you have a couple main people, maybe they get an email address, but for the most part, how do you handle it? How do you can't give everyone an email address. Do you try and keep them out of the conversation? Do you try and be the go-between? Do you try to be the producer? And just have it go through you anyway. How do you involve people without other people trying to go around you the next time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think at least in my line of work, it doesn't happen often. Well, let me say this. The people I work with don't get an email. I just hire them and we work together through Slack and Discord and all that. More of the reason for that too is so all communication funnels through me, and then goes out, in and out through me, and no information gets crossed up and whatnot. So that's how I like to run it. Also, a lot of these clients are existing clients that I've had for a while, or even if they're new clients, they're coming to me because they were referred to me, and I can talk snowboarding all day with them, and whatever it may be. So that's kind of how I like to operate it. If there are times where I can't help the client out, I will put them in touch with somebody, and just say like, hey, I don't have the bandwidth now, but this person does. I've always had those clients come back for other gigs. I've never had them bid against me with these people. But I've also been on the receiving end of that, like where I've been asked to give a bid on a job that I know a buddy has had for the last like 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not going to bid on that.
Right.
And everyone's got their own way of doing it, but like I didn't bid on it, and I called my friend and just let him know that they're shopping it around. Like I don't know if you want to address that or whatnot, but you should probably know that.
Sometimes it's good to know that as like insider information,
Totally. Well, I mean, it was like a big broadcast package for a very high level event, and I was like, okay, yeah, thanks, flattered, but I think I said that we don't have time or whatnot, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's a good thing to go by if you're new to the industry. Mm-hmm. Think about that. As far as your associates and other people you're working with, those are kind of like the code of ethics, but it can be used in a good way. If you know that you have a friend that they tell you of this situation and they're like, look, I'm not going to bid on it, or I'm going to bid the same thing you are, so that it's like, so that they understand that like this is the value of this project, and I won't actually take it, I'll turn it down, or just something. That's happened before. At camp, somebody asked me to bid on something, and asked Matt to bid on something, and asked other people to bid on things that were, we all knew behind the scenes that they were shopping it around because they were cheap. And none of us actually wanted to do the work. That's the funny part. None of us actually wanted the gig. It was just funny to watch them go in circles, and then you send them a number, and they're like, okay, we'll get back with you, and immediately call Matt sitting next to me and ask the same question.
Yeah.
So in that case, I did tell the client, hey, I know what you're doing, but sometimes it might work to your advantage. So to not tell them, to just keep that a secret and be like, all right, I see what you're doing.
Trade secrets.
All right. Another question for you here. How many times, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a daily, okay, or not an actual daily, but you're working on a project, maybe a weekly, how many times do you render? I'm just curious.
Like to the picture viewer or something?
Yeah, like how many times do you run through your render? Do you do the whole thing and then render it at the end? Do you render in low sample? Do you render previews? Like, how many renders do you go through on average, you think? Do you do dailies? Do you do daily renders?
I don't do dailies anymore. I used to.
Not like daily projects, but I mean overnight. If you're working on the project, do you do like, okay, it's the end of the night?
Dailies like that.
Yeah.
Right. No. I mean, sometimes, but if I'm doing kind of like play blast stuff, like it would be either like a wireframe type hardware render or a super low sample. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not rendering the high res frames until the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I was just curious because sometimes I wonder if everyone else is as non-linear as I am. I feel like I'm very ADD, and so I'll start a project and, I'll do a little bit of a wireframe, and then I'll work on the music, and then I'll come back to the wireframe because, like, I want the music to match, but I don't want to, like, build the whole thing until I know if the
Yeah.
And then I'll low sample maybe like 30 frames one night, or maybe I need high res. I'll do half of it high res just so I can make sure it looks okay.
Yeah.
Check the timing. The next day I'll render out the other half or something, and it's all in pieces, and I'm back and forth to After Effects, but
yeah. Well, what's interesting, and like, this is what I've done sometimes if I need to see like a better than a low sample per se, is like, if I do a low sample play blast, maybe it's at like 720 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I could also do like a medium res, like medium sample type thing, and make it like 640 by 320 or whatever, 360. And so it's small, but the quality's there. And it almost renders faster because it's not as many buckets, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so I'll do that and put it in After Effects.
I mean, I'm always refining my kind of workflow, I feel like, but
yeah, I'll put everything in After Effects as a pre-comp, right? So and scale that up like 200%,
right?
And then work with that pre-comp in my main comp so that I know it's all going to line up in the end. And then when the final render happens, just refresh it and change the scale in the pre-comp.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes if I need to get those actual renders out, just doing a smaller size at a higher sample is actually faster sometimes. Because,
I don't know. I feel like I kind of have to feel like I have a feel for the entire project before I hit render. Like, I like to have at least some audio synced with it and, just some of the comping done. Like, that's why I'm saying I'm so nonlinear. I'm all over the place. But I feel like I really need all that almost like 80%, 85% locked in before I do a high-res render.
Yeah, totally. If you're going to spend time or even money if you throw it to a farm.
Right, but, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've really been getting into, and I know you're into Ableton too, but, more and more I'm just really digging into doing audio for my projects as well. Like Ableton, doing, it starts in Premiere and you put like a song to it or something, and maybe you put some sound effects. Then you're like, I really need to step this up, and then you'll export and you go to like Ableton or some other type of similar program, layering audio. It is so much fun, and if you've never done it before, I encourage you to
and it's
dive
the same,
into that.
It's, to me, it's pretty much the same thing as editing, like video editing. It's track based, layers, kind of stacking layers, mixing things together, beats, reading waveforms. Like, I mean, it's very similar. And yeah, I've always loved making music, and I suck at it, but it's just fun to like jam out on things. Like, my buddy growing up, and he's turned into like a pretty big like music producer, but his name's Morgan Page, and he's he actually won a Grammy with Deadmau5.
Oh, nice.
Deadmau5 remixed one of his tracks, and anyway, or I don't know if he won it or if he was just nominated. Either way, it was a big accolade. And
an honor just to be nominated.
What's that?
So it's an honor just to be nominated.
Exactly. But he grew up with like a MPC, and he was always doing like electronic music, and I was more into like hip hop and stuff. But through that, we were like sampling, old CDs and vinyl and tapes, and because he had all this like audio gear, and we were in like 8th grade. I mean, this was a long time ago, and I mean, he was like programming like beep beep boop boop beep beep boop beep beep boop boop beep beep boop. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's cool. But it was so early on using computers to generate the music, and then like MPCs were really kind of bridging that gap, and now you can have a full-on music studio in a laptop.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
It's incredible.
But yeah, I've always enjoyed making the stuff, and that's I think one thing that we've kind of fallen upon with a theme for this whole show is just like the different creative inspirations and the different ways of creating. Like, I mean, that's what's so fun about camp is it scratches a different creative itch for me, like doing like graphic design stuff and event whatever. And music's the same way. Like, let's go make a bunch of beats. It's super fun, and like, I don't know, I'm not that precious about it, and maybe that's part of it too. It's just like, oh, cool, that sounds good, and like the more you do that,
well, it can make you more excited about your piece too, because like, say you kind of block things out, you do an animatic or something, or even a quick wireframe, and you bring that in as a reference and you mix the audio, all of a sudden it has this life to it. Totally. And it's like, oh, now I'm excited to go back into cinema and like really finish this out, because now it's looking like it really boosts your and it lets you take a break too. Totally. Go to that other creative field, and sometimes it's very helpful in even coming up with ideas for what you want to do with a visual.
Oh, for sure. Like, like in your beat, you need like a drum fill, and it's gonna be like, ba 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 ba, and you're like, oh, you already can see that part of the edit or that part of the animation, so like playing stuff like that. And I mean, even like you said, throwing some temp tracks down just to like get the vibe, and like, is this how I want to feel it? Like, I just remembered doing that with like these old skate videos and snowboard videos we would make, like trying to find the songs where we would have like a rough cut of the part and drop in like auditioning different songs, and like certain ones would just work, and you're like jumping up and down. You're like, oh my god, I don't even have to like edit this. Right. This is insane, And just even those like little moments of inspiration are, I just love it,
I've done that with demo reels. I'll take, okay, here's all the cuts that I like. Here's the 1-2 seconds of each thing that I like. Throw them all in a timeline and just take like 10 different tracks and throw it under and see which one feels better.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I love that. And then that's where you find some of those happy accidents, like the fills that need a quick, like, whatever, the smoke explosion to hit, and you're like, oh, it's perfect,
Yeah.
So.
We haven't talked about much lately on the show having to do with the updates to Cinema 4D, and, we've been doing camp and all that stuff, and it kind of got lost in there. But this 2023, you've got first of all, the fact that it's 2023, they're using the year now. Oh, hey, Rev's here. What's up, Rev? You've got the new cloth stuff and the rope stuff, and they're teasing some stuff now. This is interesting because I like that they've been teasing stuff ahead of time. Like, you'll get kind of the inside info by watching some of these presentations. Like in Vancouver, they showed stuff off early. I love that. I mean, that's what Otoy does. Like, I know sometimes it takes a while to get the features, but they do eventually happen. When Jules comes on and talks about all this stuff, it gets you excited. And I think that them doing that in Vancouver really helped get people excited about upcoming features and, things that you'd be able to do with the software. With C4D, one of the things that just came out is McGavran actually posted like this house on fire, and everybody's like, wait a minute, what is that? Is that Embergen? What is this? And he kind of like winky faced it or whatever, and it was like, he's not saying what it is. And even Paul Babb was like, oh, you're such a tease. And Rick commented at Mograph, he said that render is literally fire or something like that. But it's like a house that is on fire, and something that EJ mentioned. He's got two good tutorials that he just came out with. One on School of Motion on all the new cloth stuff, and one on the doing claymation stuff that he did for Grayscale Gorilla's new tactile. And he mentioned in there in one of those videos that he's talking about the particle system, right? Like the cloth it's based on particles. Same thing with like XP, it's particle based cloth, right? Like that's how the Sims work. And he's like, okay, well, if they're doing this, what else could they do with, are they going to fire,
right,
smoke, liquid? So I'm interested to see where they're going with this stuff right now.
Yeah.
I don't know when they'd be making a big announcement. I feel like 2023
NAB
just
East?
came out.
Yeah.
Maybe. I have no
Well,
inside info on that, by the way.
They should
but
just buy Turbulence FD and then just implement
yeah,
it.
I'm digging Turbulence, and I still dig Turbulence.
But it hasn't been updated in so long, right? Or maybe didn't it get an update maybe a year ago or something? But like I feel like TFD's been very
Well, they're doing some other thing too. It's like a separate program that they're working on or something.
okay.
I don't really
Jenga?
know.
Jenga effects. or
Jenga
something?
Effects. Well, that's the name of the company that does.
Right.
I mean, I was using it last night. My only beef is that it can get crashy. I mean, if you're working in Turbulence FD, just be saving. ABC, always be saving.
Always be saving.
Yeah. I'm still like, people are like, oh yeah, but I played with Embergen, and it's like, yeah, but it's not in cinema.
Right.
It's not in cinema. You don't understand. It's so easy for me. Make that a collider. Don't export that along with your scene and make sure the scene scale's right and bring it into another program, and then that geo isn't right because it was a primitive and you didn't export. Like, I want it in cinema. If you're a Blender person, you want it in Blender. Like, going to an external program. Anyway, so when it comes to the fire, I really hope that that's something cinema does. And for one thing, I don't believe TFD lets you get that vector, your motion vector information still. I don't believe, like for motion blur. I don't believe it does. I was still trying to figure that out last night, because you can bring in XYZ vector information from, like, into Octane when it comes to rendering out your smoke. But if you don't have a place to get that from, then you're gonna have to RSMB that shit.
Oh,
Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, no, totally. And as we're talking about like little plug-in thingies and cinema stuff.
Yes.
So, man, it must have been a year or so ago. I came across this one link. It's a plug-in. Hang on, let me find out the name of it. It is like XO. Hang on.
Yeah, you sent it to me the other day.
XOLOTL Studio.
All right.
Not quite sure, but they have this plugin, and they have it for a bunch of different softwares and DCCs and stuff. But it's essentially a live link between Cinema and Substance Painter, and it is quite amazing. Like,
I thought you were talking about a different plugin.
Click, it sends everything over.
Yes.
Paint, send it back. It's
great.
It's essentially it takes out that workflow of like export the FBX. It does it all behind the scenes, and it just like pops up in there. And I've been working on a project. The most recent project I've been working on has been heavily detailed textures and whatnot that have to be physically accurate. So I've been doing a lot of stuff in Painter, and it's been a lifesaver. It's just so easy to go back and forth.
I have a copy of it as well, and Joey Camacho actually used it in his presentation in Vancouver at Seagraph this year. It's
nice.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just like this random plugin. You go to the website, and it's kind of a janky website, and you're like, is this it? Is this what I was looking for? And it's awesome.
I mean, it's super cool. It's one of those, it's one of those plugins that you end up getting. You're like, how did I not have this thing before? Yeah. It changes your work. It just makes it so much easier. I mean, the same thing with the C4D to AE Pro. That is it Lasse?
And also, what's the AE one that does the export instead of media encoder? It's called
like the FF MPEG, but then there's Doom.
No,
I've got
it's called
Doom's essentially a skin for FFmpeg. Oh, you're talking about
export an MP4 Anubis. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, lots of fun like little plugins. But that's a good one for sure.
I thought you were talking about.
It's only like $20. It's like worth its weight in gold.
I thought you were talking about the plugin you sent me the other day for organizing your materials in Cinema, because
we should talk about that.
Yeah, come
because
on.
That should be a default thing that's is included in Cinema. Essentially, so in this project, I've had a massive list of materials, and it's labeled by product and all this stuff. But there's no way to like search materials in Cinema. But there is a plugin. It's like 10 pounds or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but that is essentially like a search, like a material search thing for Cinema. And I did find that Cinema does have sort materials, and it will sort it by in alphabetical order, but there's no way to like filter it out, or say, reverse the alphabetical order or whatnot. So anyway, I think that's a cool function that would be great to see just natively in the app.
There's a lot of things like that. I would, even when it comes to like Octane materials, have you ever had to change something on a group of materials at the same time? Like, for example, let's say you have 10 materials and they're all very similar. Let's say you had 10 glass materials, but all of them, you needed, like, they were all different colors, but you needed to change the specular on all of them, right? Like, you just need to take them all down by like 10%. So you select all 10 of those, and you click on specular, and you change it. Well, what happens though when you have 100 materials, and you don't remember which ones were diffuse materials and which ones were glossy materials? Well, when you select them all, your object attributes manager thing on the side comes up, and there's no specular, like, or you'll go to a certain field and it's not available, and so you can't change it across the board because one of those 100 materials that you selected is a diffuse material and not a specular material.
Right.
Like some way to put some sort of sorting in to help you figure this stuff out. And I know Octane's a little different because it's third-party material, but still, there are so many times where stuff like that just is it just needs a little bit of organization, like a spreadsheet, and then I would be able to make my workflow a lot faster.
Even just implementing the object manager search into the material window,
right?
Where you can just drop it down, you can type something in, it will populate that then for you, or you can filter it down, and instead of filtering by tags that has like material, normal, whatever, it's like diffuse, specular, subsurface, and you could just filter that way really quick too.
And I want to be able to use multiple layers, because like what Vernon is saying, you add material to a layer and then sort it. Well, what if some of your layers, it's like, you want to sort by red materials.
Yeah, right.
But also glossy materials. You can add only one layer at a time. A good example of that is, and this is another beef that I have with Cinema, there needs to be a plugin or something. If I have a complex scene, and I know you were working on a particular complex scene recently that I took a look at because it was so heavy. When something is that complex, or let's say you have a lot of sims, or you got a lot of particles, or you got like volume builder. Great example is I'll be working in something and I've got like 10 volume builders because I'm not done with them. I don't want to turn them into geo yet because I'm not ready. I might need to go back. They're trying to update every frame. Okay, well, I'll turn them off. Well, how do I do that? I got to do a search for volume builder, and then I got to go through and select them all, and I got to turn them off. And then I got to remember the names of the things to turn them back on, and then where's my particles? What are they named? The easy thing to do is to add those to a layer, right? So I have a layer called mute. And if I'm working in a complex scene, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with part 1. Like the piece that I just posted, it had a bunch of like vials of, you know, like syringes.
Yeah,
and in
yeah.
this second part, there's this whole other thing with like, you know, some dynamics, and it's got a whole like a whole another second part to the scene. Well, I want to turn off all that stuff at the beginning because it's making my viewport so incredibly ass slow that I can't turn them off. You can turn off the traffic lights, but it's still calculating in the background. It's still slow. You have to select every child of all of those things, assign them to a layer, then go to that layer, turn it off in the viewport, turn off generators, turn off express. Like, you got to go through this. But then if they're already assigned to something, like maybe they're assigned to a layer of part 1. This is all my stuff from part 1. I don't necessarily want to turn off all of that layering that I spent all that time. I want to add another layer. My beef is like, there needs to be an easy way to tell your viewport not to worry about certain things, you know, easily. Like, you can mute stuff, you can solo stuff.
Yeah.
But how about the opposite? And
you know, it's funny, like how I have my setup, right? Like, so how I build my shots are like, if I have multiple products, each product gets put on its own layer, and then each take corresponds to that layer. And then if there's multiple shots for that take, those are sub takes, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, the layer system, I dock, it's the CV, what is it? The CV layer comps toolbar. I dock right above my layer window because it has a whole mute layers button. And so like you can just click on the layer, hit mute layer, and it just blacks the whole thing out. So that saves a few clicks.
Right.
But yes, I mean, keeping everything like in like a muted layer or a hidden layer that you need to hide, like I do that too. The one thing, and this is a request line thing, that when you're selected on a layer, like, because if you're working in layers and takes and you're bouncing all around, like without a doubt, you're going to leave a layer like selected, right? And say you add a new material, that new material automatically gets tagged to that layer.
That would be nice.
No, that's how it works. And so if you don't know you're highlighted on the green layer, you make a new material, you hide the green layer because that's your like muted layer. Then all of a sudden you can't find that material because it's now hidden,
right?
Because it automatically got tagged. So like, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, what the heck? Like, this has a graphic on it, but there's no material. And so I have to like go through, turn all the layers back on, and sure enough, it's been tagged with a hidden layer, you know?
Right. I was thinking about objects, because if you put a new object in something inside of something, it wouldn't add that layer. Like if you put like a new piece of geo, it would be cool if you could give a layer, say this null, anything under this null automatically has this layer.
Yeah, I like that.
Children, like apply to children, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, you know, I did with this workflow, a lot of times it's like you have to select the root null and all the children, add them to a layer, you know. So like I have Alt A as a keyboard shortcut to select all children.
Okay.
And that, like, just little things like that have been such a time saver. Because, I mean, we've talked about it before just on so many different podcasts and whatnot, but like if you're doing the same thing like multiple times in like a shot, like you should make that a preset or whatever it is.
Right. Or at least a shortcut.
Exactly.
But one of the things that I would love for them to add along those lines is a way to find out what's taking up all of that processing power, because sometimes the scene is huge. It's like, what is slowing this stupid thing down? If I could just see, just like in the new After Effects where it gives you the milliseconds.
Yeah.
And this null right here takes up like half your CPU right now.
Totally. Or even just give me a polygon count. right? Because like it already generates it if you select it in the viewport, right? Like in the little HUD. And then also within the project, you can do the project tab.
Right. There's a lot of steps to get there.
I forget what it is.
Yeah, it's in the info or
it's
something.
It's in there somewhere. But so it's already generating that information. I would love it to say like, okay, you've got 10 million polys in your scene and 8 of them are in this piece of geo, you know?
Right.
Because that one scene you were talking about earlier that I had you look at, there was one piece of geo that was like a circuit board, like
with 25 million polys or something
into this thing.
Yeah.
That was like 6 million polygons or something insane. And my viewport just couldn't play anything. And then as soon as that was gone, that you couldn't even see, you know, it was fine. But it took me so long to find it.
I also want the option to multi-instance in the viewport, but leaving the setting on for render instances in the render. Because if you have a heavy scene and it requires you for some reason to like you can render instance, but sometimes that means in render instancing, like with Octane, you still have to manage your viewport, and your viewport is slow unless you put it on multi-instancing, and you put it on multi-instancing and it's better, but you have to like, you know, change it anyway. So there, I got some AI stuff that I just quickly wanted to go through, because you got stuff like Meta, you know, they say that they're coming out with like some sort of AI.
Legs.
What?
Now with legs.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Or, right? Isn't that the whole thing? Like their metaverse, your character's gonna have legs.
Right. And the but I don't know. There's some stuff that they're coming out with. There's prompt. What is it called? Promptumania or something, where you can make your own prompts. There's some really great stuff coming out, and like, I don't know. I still feel like Midjourney has the best soul. I haven't been I haven't been really in doing much with Midjourney recently. I just been too busy on other stuff, but I've been somewhat trying to pay attention to the Slack channels and different things that are popping up, and I've seen more people talk about the Stable Diffusion and all the plugins and integration it has with Photoshop. And I think Billy even said he canceled his Midjourney subscription and he's just using this with some other like kind of plug-in type thing. That anyway, you have to run it on your own system if you do something like that, you know. But like, I'm real interested to see, like, there's a fork of a fork of Stable Diffusion that you can train to your own face and then make a whole bunch of like random generated art of you know. Like me driving a car, you know. That might actually be really cool for things like if you're going to do if you have a brand or something, you know, and you have like a featured celebrity, or maybe not a celebrity, but like a featured host or a featured actor or something, and you don't have to get them in the studio to pose for a promo photo for something. You know?
Totally.
So I really want to play with that. I've been playing with EB Synth as well. I'll let y'all know if I come up with anything cool. I've been trying to like use EB Synth to do stuff it's not supposed to do. I think sometimes it's fun to try and see what to get weird with it and see what weird things come up. But
I don't even know what EB Synth is.
It's in a nutshell, let's say you have a piece of footage, okay? And you want it to look like it's painted or watercolored. You could paint keyframes, bring it in, give it the footage, give it some masking, and then have it spit out a completely fully painted thing every frame. And it uses AI and a bunch of stuff to make sure it looks good, but have a animated version of, or a painted version of a video or something. But I know you've got to get going soon. Real quick though, I did want to do a quick VR corner because the Quest Pro was announced, and the Quest Pro is coming out on the 24th. I have pre-ordered mine because I'm really excited about it. Like I mentioned earlier, like the pass-through stuff is going to be in color. I don't know if you saw Don Allen was in the video, which is really cool. So we know a celebrity now, right?
I saw someone use a Quest in an interesting way. I saw it going around on Twitter, like they were in a conference room and they had a laptop and they put the thing on and they had the laptop, but then used it to put like 5 monitors all around the table.
Yeah, I saw that video. It's that one dude, I never remember his name. He's on TikTok and YouTube. He does all this tech stuff. I saw that video this morning, I think.
Oh, okay.
But imagine, I love the collaboration stuff, and I know people give it a lot of crap, but if you and I both had this headset, right, and we both have color pass-through, then we could both be sitting there. I would be in my environment, kitchen table or backyard or whatever, just chilling, bring you into my environment with the pass-through. So essentially, like, you're sitting on my couch. You're an animated character, but you're sitting on my couch. I like that because there is something a little bit different about collaborating with people when it's not a Zoom call. You know? When we were getting ready for camp, you flew out and we hung out and took a couple days to do camp stuff together, and it's a lot different than sitting on Discord.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you were saying with EB Synth, it's cool to see these things come out and then used in different ways that people didn't really expect. Right. I think people are thinking VR, the video game, or AR this or what, and then someone pops up with like a use case of how you would use it in a workplace.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like made a ghetto version of this on my own at one point because like on the existing headset right now, there's only a couple things you can do with that pass-through camera, right? But I'm like, oh, this thing would be cool if I could see my room at the same time, but it doesn't have that feature. So what I realized is that you can, like, if you put it in like the non-room mode where you're not walking around your room but you're sitting in place, if you're ever out of your zone, it starts to fade in the room. So I realized if I set my point where I'm supposed to be slightly forward and then I lean back, then the room fades in and I can like half see my room in black and white and half see the other stuff. I'm really looking forward to the AR stuff. So I will report in when I find out when I get it, and if I find out it's actually useful. But I know you got to get going, so really appreciate you being on today, man. Like,
yeah, of course.
It was fun to sit and have a conversation about some super geeky stuff. Yeah,
man. Oh, it's good.
So next week we will be back to our usual configuration. Matt will be back and back from New York and whatnot, and we've got who's on next week? I have to go double check. But don't forget to tune in to the Halloween episode on Monday, 2 weeks from now, which will be Halloween. That's going to be super fun. Make sure you're ready to call in on Skype. Get all your stuff ready.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get out of here. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. Also, subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Helps get our ratings up. Subscribe to the newsletter, and you can say you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Bab 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. The Render Things T-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee, the Mograph blandishment shirt, and of course the That Render is Fire shirt, which you're only allowed to wear ironically, unless you're Shams. And that about wraps it up. Again, Mark, if people want to find you online, where can they find you?
On all the things. If you just start typing in profanity creative, it's pretty much that. It'll pop up. Or my name, Mark Cernosia.
There you go.
On all the socials. Yeah. But cool. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. We're going to get out of here, though. Until next time, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mark.
Have a good one. Later, yo. Stand by.
Stand by.